Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments, such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
Giving Tuesday is quickly approaching, and you can give back to nonprofits making a positive impact in Idaho. We're giving away $1,000 in on-air messaging to 2 randomly selected nonprofits that are nominated by you. Shine a light on the important work of charitable organizations. To learn more and nominate your favorite nonprofit, visit us online at boisestatepublicradio.org.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Samantha Wright, filling in for Jim Goddett. This is Idaho Matters. As universities across the country face an enrollment cliff because of a low birth rate, finding ways to reach rural and non-traditional students is a priority. At Boise State, a program started in 2020 has made inroads with rural communities in ways institutions haven't before, helping students grow roots to stay, lead, and make an impact. But as Troy Oppie reports, the program is now out of funding. And a quick note, this story begins with a mention of suicide.
Robin Warner's life turned upside down in late 2021. Her son Colton, who'd struggled with traditional education and dyslexia, took his own life. Her family's home and council burned down a few months later. She closed her bakery to step back and reset. Then a friend asked for her help at the local school.
I realized I wanted to teach. The 6th grade teacher quit. They threw me in, and I've been here ever since, so I needed to go back to finish my bachelor's.
She couldn't move and found a program that would let her do online classes, Boise State's Community Impact Program. CIP targets rural students who need flexibility, but is also designed so students can impact the very same places they live and work.
We built it in rural communities. We built it with the communities themselves. We asked them what they needed. That's not something that universities have done in recent history very much at all.
That's now former Boise State President Marlene Trump speaking earlier this spring. Warner joined a CIP cohort in McCall, which is a group of students from the area. CIP is online, but cohorts meet in person for 2 days each semester. Classes cover leadership, collaboration techniques, and emotional intelligence. To earn the certificate, students have to create a community project. In one of the 5 semesters, Warner's story moved her group to action.
And when we finally settled on me being mental health resources, we just started doing a lot of research into what did that look like? What resources are available? What ones would be applicable not only in council for students, but also just in the community?
The research led to connections with Ignite Idaho and the Youth Advocacy Coalition and a program called Hope Squad,
which is a peer-to-peer evidence-based suicide prevention curriculum.
Kids specially trained on how to help kids. Here's Tam Lerner, Hope Squad training director, in a video published by the group.
We know that kids talk to kids, and 7 out of 10 of them will do or say something prior to their suicide attempt that, if recognized, could be the opportunity to provide an intervention to save that life.
The Utah-based organization now has squads in thousands of schools nationwide, but there wasn't anything like it in council. Warner's CIP group successfully pitched Hope Squad to the council school district, which started the program in the high school last year. Warner is the facilitator and has continued to work toward a master's degree after completing her CIP certificate. Council's Hope Squad this summer helped conduct a community survey to get information on how kids were struggling with mental health. That action led directly to new grant funding from a separate group, Communities for Youth, to support comprehensive youth mental health education.
They said, we see a need and we want to help you guys. And this was all because we started Hope Squad and took that survey.
Warner's story in council is a shining example of how CIP students are making an impact at home, but certainly not the only one. About 150 students have enrolled since CIP began in 2020. The vast majority complete the certificate, and that now includes 40-year-old Gonzalo Valdez. When we spoke during the spring semester, he shared why he left college behind in his 20s.
For the next almost 15 years, I went into the professional world of dance through Idaho Dance Theater.
Valdez traveled the world and, after retiring about 5 years ago, realized he wanted to finish his path to being a teacher. The CIP program will be part of his bachelor's degree, which he's working toward while working at Emmett High School.
It's felt like a lot of luck, just because everything that is coming from this program is very practical. But in my case, I can apply it right away, which is just incredible to me. So the aha moments happen all the time.
For many students, the aha moment is the scholarship that covers the full cost of the CIP program, plus about $1,800 to use if they want to continue their education at Boise State. 45 CIP scholarships cost the university about $250,000. Former President Trump, speaking with Boise State Public Radio before her departure, says enrollment was noticeably up from communities where they planted CIP cohorts.
We saw a 20 to 50% increase in all the communities where we planted that program. And that was not counting the students who were enrolled in that program.
Trump touted her signature program at the State House before lawmakers, where it was, by all accounts, popular. But the scholarship was a critical component of recruiting non-traditional students. The $250,000 came directly from the office of the president. With Trump now gone, the funding is gone after this school year, too. External grant funding leaders had penciled in to support CIP scholarships next fall didn't materialize, and hopes of expanding CIP to embed full-time staff in communities like Payette, Emmett, and elsewhere has now taken a back seat to just finding enough funding to support some level of scholarship. Troy Oppie, Boise State Public Radio News.
So what is the future of the CIP program? Boise State Public Radio news reporter and All Things Considered host Troy Oppie starts part 2 of this look into CIP, which was the signature program of former university president Marlene Trump.
We built it in rural communities. We built it with the communities themselves. We asked them what they needed. That's not something that universities have done in recent history very much at all.
The curriculum taught leadership, collaboration techniques, and emotional intelligence, skills students can immediately put back into their communities through a final project. It focused on, but isn't limited to, communities in Elmore, Valley, Gem, and Payette counties. Program leaders have connected with local officials, chambers of commerce, and business leaders to build out the program's curriculum and identify potential students.
This concept of community engagement, civic engagement, and leadership so that individuals can come back to their home community, or if they're there, they can be civic leaders or leaders in their workplace.
That's Alicia Griffith. When we spoke earlier this year, she was the interim director of community-based education in the College of Extended Studies. CIP was under her direction. I was then working on a story profiling CIP and the success of its students. You heard that story yesterday on Morning Edition.
We are making, I think, a larger impact than we can actually measure because people are continuing to engage with us. They are finishing their degrees. They are being engaged citizens, which I think is really what our rural community needs.
Here's how CIP has worked. To incentivize students, CIP offered $5,500 scholarships, about 2/3 of which covered the cost of the 7-credit CIP certificate, and the remainder was available to fund further education at Boise State. Griffith says the scholarship was a critical piece of recruiting.
We hear often, well, I joined for the money, but I stayed because of the people and the program itself.
Griffith this spring said she had plans to add embedded staff in targeted communities as the CIP program was continuing to grow. But when I reached back out to her in July with a few final questions for that reporting, she said things had changed and CIP was now going to end after its current group of students. She referred me to the new interim dean of the College of Extended Studies, Nikki Callison. And at this point, I should mention that Extended Studies is also the academic home of Boise State Public Radio, but our newsroom operates independently. Emails obtained through a public records request show external grant funding that had been penciled in for CIP starting next year was no longer available. It's not clear why. The president's office funded scholarships with up to $250,000 each year. CIP only used about $200,000 of that money in 2025, but the funding was not going to continue. Allison, in an email to me this summer, wrote that CIP didn't generate revenue, so without funding, it didn't have a viable future. But email records suggest that the university's interim president, Jeremiah Shin, didn't weigh in on the decision to sunset the program until a week after the public records request was made. In a July 17th email, Shin directed Pete Reese, the now former University Director for Government and Industry Relations, and Jen Schneider, Dean of the College of Innovation and Design, to collaborate on a path forward for CIP. Meanwhile, Griffith left Extended Studies weeks later. She moved to a new role in Boise State's College of Business. Here's Jen Schneider.
We're thinking of this as a fresh start and a way to redesign the program so that it continues to serve those communities.
She told me Griffith, despite leaving her previous role, has since been brought on as needed to consult on the best path forward. They've also been meeting or plan to meet with business and local community leaders in Emmett, Payette, and Cascade.
They're really interested in things like having training in AI, having training in cybersecurity, having training in conflict management. And we have that expertise on our campus. So is there a way that we can redesign this program so that we get the right experts from campus out to those communities?
And they want to keep connecting with non-traditional students CIP was meant to bring to Boise State. But Schneider says they're still searching for funding for the scholarships that were so critical to get students to sign up.
You know, a big focus of the interim president at Boise State right now is on student scholarships and making sure that every student who wants to come to Boise State has scholarship funding. I'm seeking to see if we can potentially tap into that momentum and into that desire to, provide funding for those students.
She's optimistic they'll get that done and they can start recruiting the next cohort. But Schneider says the additional scholarship funds that incentivize students to continue higher ed after they complete the program probably won't be available.
The Community Impact Program certificate, we certainly want to cover those costs. We know that that's essential. I think after that, the goal will be to connect students with existing resources on campus already.
A university spokesperson characterized Callison's direction to sunset the CIP program as a misunderstanding in the leadership transition after former Dean of Extended Studies Mark Wheeler retired in June. Callison was not made available for additional comment because, the spokesperson said, CIP was no longer under her leadership. Schneider says her goal, beyond finding funding, is to run an efficient program that delivers for students.
And when I talk to, whether it's a 18-year-old who's just coming to school or it's a 50-year-old who's coming back to school, the opportunities that this creates for them and the way that it changes how they view the communities they're from is transformational. And for me, that's what makes me want to keep going with this. It's what makes me want to fight for this program and figure out how we make it work.
There's more details and the first part of this story on our website, boisestatepublicradio.org. Troy Oppie, Boise State Public Radio News.
I'm Gemma Gaudette, and this is Idaho Matters.
How does AI even work? Where does creativity come from? What's the secret to living longer? TED Radio Hour explores the biggest questions with some of the world's greatest thinkers. They will surprise, challenge, and even change you. Listen to NPR's TED Radio Hour wherever you get your podcasts.